You know, what's amazing is that still now we can't figure out what the hell's going on as far as traveling by air across this country. You were just telling me very briefly about your own experience, and we'll talk about that when you went out to BC.
But we also were just saying that we don't even remember, like, when did it get this bad, and why has it stayed so bad?
The whole world is traveling apparently again. Everyone, I guess one of the reasons, I'm just speculating, maybe John can tell us differently, but when no one was traveling, right, all that pent-up desire to finally, when you could travel, get out, I think that's what's happening now, right? It's everybody who couldn't travel then. It's like, I'm going to do this now because who knows? We may have another one of these things where I can't go anywhere, so I'm going to go. So today, different story here. We talked, I guess, a couple of weeks ago about the mess as far as airports were concerned. There was going to be a new passengers' air rights bill. Omar Al-Gabra, of course, is no longer the transport minister.
Pablo Rodriguez is our new transport minister.
But then we find out today, Nav Canada, I guess themselves under a bit of a situation now where there simply are not enough air traffic controllers in this country, and I don't think this is unique just to Canada. They've now introduced a new social media account, not specifically to deal with that, but I guess to help explain to us, to consumers, to travelers, exactly what the hell is going on. Because part of the problem when you go out to the airport and you try to understand why your flight is delayed, or there's no one to get any information from. You go to a gate, they're like, we'll let you know as soon as we know, which is no information at all. So we thought we'd get John GRADEK on, who's a lecturer, of course, at McGill at their Global Aviation Leadership Program. John, thanks again for being here. I don't know, when I have you on sometimes to deal with these situations, I'm not sure there's an answer to any of these problems other than to speculate why this is happening. So what's the NavCan idea here?
Well, NavCan is basically doing a PR job to make sure that, nobody else is stealing their thunder when it comes to pointing the finger at whoever people decide to point their fingers at, saying it's NavCan's problem. NavCan saying, we'll deal with our problems, we'll let you know when we're having a problem, otherwise everybody keep quiet about NavCan. So they're trying to manage the noise around air traffic management issues. So
just as you described it off the top, it sounds like an exercise in public relations, not anything that's going to necessarily help anybody, or am I wrong?
No, it's not. The situation is still going to be one of confusion or lack of information or lack of figuring out what exactly the problem is. This is just NavCan saying, hey guys, we have a problem. We're short-staffed in Vancouver. We've got, we've got an issue with weather in Halifax, and we've got snow in St. John's. Thank you very much. Expect a delay. Call your local airline for information.
Can I?
It's just that all that is it's kind of like a complete circle, right?
Well, and I feel like people don't, we've reached a point where we almost don't care anymore what the reason is, right? Like, I mean, you do want to know, you're like, I need to know why it's delayed, but ultimately it doesn't matter and it doesn't change anything. You just want the information so you can govern yourself accordingly about, when you're heading to the airport. What kind of impact would this actually possibly have, John?
Well, I think we're starting to see that now. And you remember last summer, right, Aaron? You remember what the mess was like? And so delays, people stuck on airplanes for 5 or 6 hours, staying 10 hours in line at customs and immigration and bags. So, Canadians got, the taste of what that operation looks like. And it's unfortunately not getting much. It's a little better, but still a mess at Pearson, a little less so at Trudeau. But, flights are still getting delayed. And I think what's happened is that Canadians have finally come to the realization that when you're traveling on an airline in Canada, don't expect to be on time. And build that into your build that into your plan. Leave a day early because you're going to be late, and don't make any plans to do something. When you get to the destination, give yourself a buffer at that destination because they know that the odds are you are going to be late. So Canadians are no longer clamoring about the issue of lateness. So we've accepted it. That's the way it is, and just build that into your traveling plans.
So, based on the fact that, and we talked about this in the past as well, Omar Al-Gabra is transport minister. We both kind of look at each other sometimes, and he didn't seem to have a handle really on anything that was going on. Are you confident that the change will make a difference as far as the new transport minister, or is that asking too much of whoever takes on this portfolio?
Oh, it's a huge task. There's no doubt about it that this is not a task for the for the weak of heart or for the weak-willed. You're on the firing line as of day one. I think Mr. Rodriguez saw that last week when he came in, and then the next day we saw the dock workers in Vancouver decide to reject a contract, and that's part of his responsibility as well as Marine. So he knows this is a hotbed. He's very politically astute. as was Algabra. And I think that both of these ministers are basically saying our job is going to be political and to manage the noise level. Are we going to get advancements, or are we going to get the problems fixed? It's probably going to be more than just the minister is going to require to do that. I think it's going to require Canadians to basically say, enough, we've had it, and we're going to, come up and demand changes. And I think that we're going to find what the right venue is for that and how that's going to work, because I think the ministers are there to deal with the political game rather than deal with the actual problem.
Right. They need to be very effective communicators. And Algabra, as nice of a man as he is, was a terrible communicator and even blamed the travelers for the travel.
Yeah.
But I think
but haven't we all done that? Haven't we all complained and nothing really got done?
Well, yeah, I think, the question is, we've got to raise the volume a little bit. I'm not sure, and to the point of, what does raise the volume really mean? But I think that, we've got to look at, transportation. The aviation industry has got a whole bunch of issues associated with it, whether it's air traffic control, whether it's the airlines overscheduling, whether it's, poor investment in airport infrastructure and baggage rooms that are 30 years old that need some TLC. There's a lot of things that have to happen. In my view, it's really a question of governance in terms of who's got control. I think we've gone through the experiment of deregulation since 1985, 86. And, my view is that the jury's out as to whether that's a failed experiment or whether it's worthwhile doing it. I think that right now we've got a situation where it's pretty disjointed in terms of making sure we're making the right decisions as an industry. Somehow, some way, we need some oversight, we need some governance. And I think that the time has come for us to rethink that whole process.
So Natasha was saying that so this is an example, because obviously a lot of people are affected the same way. You had a flight out to Vancouver and
Kelowna.
You ended up
so
6 hours?
Very typical situation, John. 6-hour delay. We found out we were delayed when we were already on the way to the airport. So then we're getting text updates, but we're trapped in the airport for 6 hours. We miss our ride, have to rent a car, incurred expenses. There was no food on the flight because most of the food had spoiled. No ice for the drinks. The drinks were warm, yada, yada. One functioning bathroom on the entire plane. So I lodge a complaint. I say, this is outrageous. We missed a whole day with our family, incurred expenses. And they basically said, too bad, so sad. We can't do anything to help you. So when you talk about sort of speaking up and being louder about it, what should a person who finds themselves in any kind of situation like that, what do you do next, John?
Oh, I think that, the question is, what are the options? And the options right now, unfortunately, happens to be through the legal system, where you basically file a small claims court, and you basically take it on. Going to the CTA, which is the agency that's supposed to be there representing, passenger rights. There's 53,000 people sitting in front of that lineup, so bonne chance.
Wow. Thanks, John.
The question is, we have to go and make some noise. I think that that's the only thing I can see, that we need a little bit of a quiet rebellion, and maybe not so quiet, but just to let the industry know, I'm mad as hell and I'm not going to take it anymore. And I think that's what we have to start figuring out, what that methodology should be. Yeah. So I'm going to look to Aaron for another T-shirt.
Yeah. Won't be with the airline industry, but it's a great line to bring back from Network, right? Yeah. With Peter Finch. Yeah. I want to ask one other thing, and maybe you can answer this really, really quickly. How much of this, if we're looking to assess blame, in the case of Air Canada anyway, is them trying to do too much, trying to get too many flights out to make up for all that money lost during COVID?
Oh, I think that's the underlying issue that we have, is that, we have an overly eager airline industry that's trying to recover quickly, and that's trying to provide some return to their shareholders. The Air Canada stock is publicly traded, and the management team at Air Canada really is looking to see, how do we catch up to that 2 years worth of lost income and lost dividends to our shareholders. And they're being incentivized to make sure that they're maximizing profitability and dividends to their shareholders, and I think that's an issue.
John GRADEK over at McGill. John, thank you so much. Good talking to you again.
All right. Take care of yourself.